You did it this morning. Maybe on the bus, maybe before you got out of bed. You picked up your phone, and within 30 seconds you were looking at someone else's life. A vacation you were not on. A dinner you were not eating. A milestone that was not yours. And for a brief, strange moment, something shifted in your chest. You put the phone down. You picked it back up. You are not weak. You are not shallow. You are doing something your brain has been doing for 200,000 years. You cannot stop thinking about other people's lives. And the reason why reach is much deeper than Instagram. Here is what most people assume. They assume this is a modern problem. A tech problem. A generation that can't put their phones down problem. But social comparison is not a glitch in your psychology. It is a feature. It was installed long before smartphones, long before television, long before written language existed at all. And once you understand why it was installed, everything you feel when you scroll through someone else's highlight reel starts to make a different kind of sense. Cast your mind back. Not to your childhood, not to your parents. Go back 100,000 years. You are living in a group of roughly 150 people. You know every face. You know every name. You know who is strong and who is sick, who is generous and who hoards, who the group trusts and who it barely tolerates. This is not gossip. This is survival data. In that world, your position within the group determined almost everything. It determined whether you ate when food was scarce. It determined who would help you when you were injured. It determined whether you had a mate, whether your children survived, whether you lived to see your 40th year. Status was not vanity. Status was infrastructure. So your brain built a system, a constant, humming, never fully shutting off system for tracking where you stood relative to the people around you. Psychologist Leon Festinger named it in 1954. He called it social comparison theory. But Festinger was not describing something new. He was putting a clinical name on something ancient. The drive to evaluate your own abilities, your own worth, your own standing by looking at the people closest to you. And here is the key word: closest. For most of human history, closest meant the 150 people you actually lived with. No one else existed in any meaningful sense. The chief 3 valleys over was not competition. The woman with the beautiful voice in the next village was not someone you would ever encounter again. Your comparison pool was small, manageable, and crucially, it was real. Now zoom forward to today. Your comparison pool is 4 billion people and it fits in your pocket. This is what researcher Sherry Turkle at MIT has described as a fundamental mismatch between the brain you were born with and the environment you now inhabit. Your brain has no category for the difference between your actual neighbor and a stranger with 2 million followers. It processes both as social information. It responds to both as if status is at stake, because in its deep logic, it always is. And your brain does not just passively receive that information, it seeks it. This is the part most people find uncomfortable to admit. You are not being manipulated into checking on other people's lives. You are drawn there. Because for 100,000 years, any creature that stopped monitoring its social environment was a creature that got left behind, left out, or left to starve. There is a structure in your brain called the ventral striatum. It lights up when you receive a reward. Food, warmth, a surprise gift, a kiss from someone you love. And researchers at the University of Bonn discovered something that should unsettle you in a productive way. The ventral striatum also lights up when you learn that you are doing better than someone else, not when you do better. When you learn you are doing better. The social comparison itself is the reward. Your brain is not just tracking the information. It is getting a hit from it. This is why you do not look at other people's lives and feel nothing. You cannot. The system was not built for neutral. It was built for signal detection. And every signal gets processed through the same ancient filter. Am I above this person or below them? Am I safe or am I falling behind? Researcher Sonia Lyubomirsky spent years studying why some people seem immune to the pull of social comparison while others are consumed by it. What she found is that the people most sensitive to social comparison are not the most insecure. They are often the most intelligent in a specific social way. They are finely tuned to the nuances of their environment. In the ancestral world, that tuning was an asset. In a world saturated with curated images of strangers living their best lives, it can become a source of near-constant low-grade suffering. Because here is what the comparison machine cannot account for. It was never designed to receive performance. And that is almost entirely what it is receiving now. When you lived with 150 people, you saw everything. You saw them sick. You saw them fail. You saw them cry over a dead child and quarrel over a shared meal and wake up in the morning looking not so different from you. The comparison was made against full human beings, mess and all. Now the comparison is made against a curated selection of the best moments of the best days of the lives of people who often have a financial incentive to make those moments look even better than they were. Your brain does not know this. It cannot know this. It evolved in a world where what you saw was what was real. So it takes the image at face value, it runs the calculation, it reaches a conclusion. And somewhere in your chest, something adjusts. Psychologists call this upward social comparison. You look at someone doing better than you, and your sense of your own position shifts accordingly. Sometimes this motivates you. You want what they have. You move toward it. But research by Thomas Musweiler at the University of Cologne shows that upward comparison does not usually motivate. More often, it deflates. Because the gap between you and the person you are comparing yourself to feels not like an invitation but like evidence. Evidence that you are behind, evidence that something about your life is lacking, evidence that the race is already being won by someone else and you are standing still. And then you put the phone down and you pick it back up. Here is the counterintuitive part. The comparing itself does not make you feel worse because you are doing it wrong. It makes you feel worse because you are doing it right. The system is functioning exactly as designed. It is just receiving inputs it was never designed to handle. The signal is coming in too fast, from too many sources, with too much polish, and with no off switch. Because there was always an off switch. Sleep. The boundaries of your village. The absence of other people. Your brain got to rest. It got to stop comparing. It got to return to baseline. You do not have that anymore. Your phone is the village that never sleeps. The neighbors who are always there, always visible, always doing something that your brain cannot help but file under social information. So what do you do with this? The answer is not to stop comparing. You cannot stop. The answer is to understand what your brain is actually doing when it compares, so you can make a slightly different choice about what you feed it. Researchers including Kristen Neff at the University of Texas have studied what happens when people practice something she calls self-compassion, recognizing their own struggle as part of a shared human experience rather than personal failure. What they found is not that people stopped comparing. It is that when they compared and came up short, the emotional weight of that comparison was significantly reduced, not because the gap closed, but because the meaning of the gap changed. Being behind is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that you are a human brain doing a human thing in a world it was not designed for. Think about the last time you genuinely felt good. Not the scrolling kind of good. The real kind. The kind that stays. Chances are it had nothing to do with learning you were ahead of someone else. Chances are it had everything to do with something you were fully inside. A conversation. A meal. A moment when you were so absorbed in what was in front of you that the ranking system switched off entirely. That is not an accident. That is your brain getting a break from the calculation. And it feels like relief because it is. Your ancestors looked at each other across a fire every night. They saw full people, tired people, struggling people, people who looked back at them with equal measures of want and worry and warmth. That is the comparison your brain was built for. A comparison that reminded you that everyone in the circle was in it together, that the gap between you was small, that the person across the fire was not a highlight reel. They were just a person. Tonight, when you reach for your phone, your brain will do what it has always done. It will scan the room. It will run the calculation. It will try to figure out where you stand. Just remember that the room it thinks it is scanning no longer exists. It never did. It was always just you, and 150 people, and a fire.